Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about something a little different. Not your usual unboxing, not a top 10 list, not a life hack that'll change anything probably. We're going to wade into the static, into that relentless hum that's become the soundtrack to our lives. You feel it, don't you? That phantom buzz in your pocket, even when your phone's on the table. The flicker of a dozen open tabs in your mind's eye. The low thrum of a world that never, ever logs off. We're going to ask a question, a strange one, and honestly, you probably won't survive this. Not in the way you think. This isn't about bears or blizzards. This is about the storm inside. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Go on, I'll wait. And hey, while you're at it, post your location and your local time in the comments. Let's see where all of us are, scattered across the spinning rock, tethered together by glass and light, all about to stare into the same quiet abyss. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and get this evening started. Part 1. Whispering. Could you survive if the noise stopped? Shoo, just for a moment. Imagine it. Not just the traffic outside your window, or the neighbor's questionable music taste. I mean all of it. The pings, the dings, the chimes. The endless scroll. That river of faces and facts and fictions. Always flowing. Always demanding your gaze. The 24-hour news cycle. A relentless jackhammer pounding away at your peace. The little red dots. Blooming like digital measles. Screaming for your attention. The pressure, subtle but constant, to be available, to be responsive, to be on. And deeper still, the noise inside. That frantic inner monologue, the one that replays yesterday's awkward conversation on a loop, the one that rehearses tomorrow's anxieties, the one that's always chattering, amplified by every notification, every click, every fleeting outrage served up by the algorithm. What if it all just ceased? An abrupt, deafening silence. Could you actually bear it? We're creatures of adaptation, you know. It's one of our neatest tricks. Our brains are wired to filter, to fade the constant into the background. That ticking clock in a quiet room? After a while, you don't hear it. The rumble of the city? It becomes a lullaby. Sensory adaptation, they call it a gradual dimming of awareness to a persistent stimulus, freeing up your precious attention for what's new, what's different, what might actually matter. But what happens when the stimulus isn't just persistent, but designed to resist that fading? Engineered to be endlessly novel, to snag your attention again and again with a fresh hit, a new outrage, another tiny, irresistible reward? That's the game now, isn't it? The noise isn't just a byproduct of modern life. It's the product. Think about the sheer, bewildering avalanche of choices you face every single day. Start small, almost comically so. Remember when milk was just milk? Maybe you picked whole or skim. Now, you stand in the dairy aisle, or what used to be the dairy aisle, and it's a philosophical crisis. Cow's milk, almond, soy, oat, rice, hemp, macadamia, pistachio, full fat, low fat, no fat, barista blend, unsweetened, vanilla infused. It's enough to make you consider a life of black coffee and existential despair. And that's just breakfast. Extrapolate that to every streaming service, every news source, every potential life path glittering seductively on a tiny screen. Psychologists have a name for this: the paradox of choice. The more options we have, the theory goes, the less satisfied we become, the more anxious, the more prone to regret. It's a cognitive blizzard, this freedom. Instead of liberating us, this near-infinite array of possibilities often just adds to the cacophony, the mental static. Decision fatigue is a real thing. Your brain's like a muscle, and every choice, big or small, is a rep. Imagine doing 35,000 reps before you even hit the pillow. No wonder you're tired. No wonder you just want to numb out. It's funny, isn't it? We're so terrified of being bored, yet we're drowning in a sea of overstimulation that leaves us feeling strangely empty. Perhaps the fear isn't of boredom itself, but of what boredom unveils. When the external clamor subsides, the internal volume cranks up. The thoughts you've been outrunning, the feelings you've been scrolling past, the big, awkward questions about meaning and purpose that you've been too busy to entertain. They all start to creep out from under the bed. Is that what we're really afraid of? The sound of our own unadulterated minds? It's a bit like those phantom vibrations, isn't it? You swear your phone buzzed, but it's silent. Your brain, so conditioned to the noise, starts inventing its own. What if the real phantom isn't the vibration, but the peace we think we crave but secretly can't handle? Historically, we haven't always run from quiet. The ancient Greeks knew a thing or two about noise. Way back in the 6th century BCE, the colony of Sybaris had one of the first known noise ordinances. Potters, tinsmiths, anyone making a racket had to live outside the city walls. They even banned roosters. Imagine trying to ban roosters today. You'd have an online petition with 1 million signatures by lunchtime, probably with a viral rooster dance challenge. And then there were the Pythagoreans, old Pythagoras and his crew. If you wanted to join their club, you had to take a 5-year vow of silence. 5 years. Just listening. No hot takes, no witty retorts, no selfies with your philosopher buddies. Some cultures, even now, see silence as a sign of wisdom, of careful thought. A pause in conversation isn't awkward. It's respectful. But in many Western societies, silence is a vacuum, a void that must be filled immediately with anything. Small talk, nervous laughter, another cat video. Anything but the quiet. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Philosophers and psychologists still debate whether our innate fear of silence is a biological imperative or a culturally conditioned response amplified by modern technology. Are we hardwired to flee the quiet, or have we just forgotten how to sit with it, how to listen to what it might be trying to tell us? During World War II, there was this thing called the Silent Minute. Every night at 9 p.m., the BBC would broadcast the chimes of Big Ben, and people across Britain in the midst of the Blitz would stop for 1 minute, to pray, to focus, to collectively will for peace. A shared silence, a purposeful quiet in the heart of chaos. Seems almost alien now, doesn't it? To choose silence together. Maybe the noise isn't just out there. Maybe it's in here. A defense mechanism. A shield. A very loud, very distracting, very effective opiate. Because if the noise truly stopped, if the choices narrowed to one, just you, and the stark, echoing silence of your own being, what then? Could you really, truly survive that? Or would the quiet crush you? Part 2. Slightly more insistent but still intimate, so you scroll, and scroll, and scroll. That endless, hypnotic cascade of images, words, fleeting moments of other people's lives, or at least, the lives they want you to see. Why? Be honest, just for a second, in the privacy of your own skull. Is it to stay informed? To be entertained? Or is it, just maybe, to avoid the unsettling stillness of your own mind? To sidestep the thoughts that bubble up when there's nothing else to look at, nothing else to react to? Teenagers, bless their angst-ridden hearts, are masters of this, filling every spare second with the glow of a screen, a digital pacifier against the vast, terrifying expanse of being a teenager. But it's not just them, is it? We're all implicated. Embracing boredom, that state our grandparents seemed to navigate with relative ease, now feels like a radical act, almost a punishment. Yet, some say it's vital, a fallow period for the mind, where creativity and self-reflection might actually sprout. And then you post. A carefully chosen snapshot, a witty observation, a declaration of allegiance, a cry for help disguised as a meme. You send it out into the digital ether, a little piece of yourself, or a carefully constructed facsimile thereof. And you wait for the likes, the hearts, the shares, the comments. Each one a tiny, fleeting pat on the head. Each one a whisper, you exist. You matter. You are seen. Because, let's face it, in a world saturated with voices, if no one sees your post, if no one reacts, did it even happen? Did you even happen? Peer acceptance has always been a powerful human drive, but now it's quantified. You get daily polling data on your relevance, your attractiveness, your wit. It's like running for office every single day, and the ballot box is a little red heart. This isn't accidental. This is by design. Your brain, that magnificent ancient organ, has a reward system, a little chemical messenger called dopamine. It's the stuff that makes you feel good when you eat something delicious or achieve a goal or get a notification, a like, comment, a new follower, ping. A tiny squirt of dopamine. Feels good, doesn't it? So you do it again and again. It's a loop, a relentless cycle of desire, seeking, and reward. You see the endless feed, you anticipate the validation, you post, you get the likes, and the desire is triggered all over again. It's a digital treadmill, and you're a very willing hamster, chasing a pellet that's always just out of reach or always needs replenishing. Some studies suggest that for young people especially, this can be incredibly powerful, wiring their brains for this constant chase, making it harder and harder to unplug. It's not so different from other addictions, this craving for the digital nod. And what are you posting? Is it the messy, complicated, contradictory truth of you? Or is it the highlight reel, the curated self, the personal brand? We've become so adept at it, haven't we? Pruning our online identities like bonsai trees, snipping away the awkward branches, the unflattering angles. Hours spent sifting through photos, agonizing over filters, crafting the perfect caption. It's a performance. And the performance is often of an idealized version of ourselves, someone cooler, happier, more successful, more enlightened than the person who's actually doing the posting. There's this strange historical echo here. In ancient Rome, the wealthy patrician families kept wax masks of their ancestors, called imagines. They'd parade them at funerals, display them in their homes. A very literal way of curating the family brand, of posting their lineage and status for all to see, proving their long-standing importance. We're still doing it, just with pixels instead of wax. But what happens when that meticulously crafted online persona, your digital imago, feels more real, more validated than the flesh and blood person behind the screen? What happens to the parts of you that don't fit the brand, the thoughts and feelings that would get you unfollowed, the vulnerabilities that don't look good with a Valencia filter? They get suppressed, hidden, sometimes even from yourself. Creates a disconnect, a chasm between who you present and who you are. This ties into that nagging modern malady, FOMO, the fear of missing out. It's not just about missing a party or a concert. It's deeper. It's the anxiety that others are having more rewarding experiences, that life is happening elsewhere, and you're not part of it. Social media is like a FOMO supercharger, a constant 24/7 window into everything you're not doing, everyone you're not with, every experience you're not having. And if you're not seen to be participating, if you're not documenting your existence, do you fade from the collective consciousness? It's an ancient fear, this dread of exclusion. For our ancestors, being part of the group was essential for survival. Rejection was quite literally a death sentence. So we're hardwired to seek belonging. But now, belonging is often measured in likes and shares, in being in the loop. It's a strange paradox. We're more connected than ever, yet many report feeling more alone. Consider the concept of face, that social currency so critical in many cultures. It's about honor, reputation, how you're perceived. Losing face is a profound humiliation. In the digital realm, not being seen, not being acknowledged, is a modern form of losing face. If your identity is increasingly built on this fragile scaffolding of external validation, what happens if the algorithm changes? What if your audience moves on? What if one day you post and no one sees? The silence isn't just an absence of likes. It's an existential whisper. Are you still there? It's like those old sumptuary laws from Renaissance England and other places. Laws that dictated what you could wear based on your social rank. You couldn't just decide to post yourself as a nobleman by donning velvet and ermine if you were a peasant. It was a way of controlling identity, of making status visible and fixed. Now, we have different kinds of sumptuary laws, self-imposed, dictated by trends and the pursuit of digital status. It's all about managing perception. But who is doing the perceiving and who is being perceived? Sociologists and psychologists continue to debate whether online identities are merely extensions of offline selves or if they constitute entirely new, fragmented forms of personhood. Are you simply showing a version of yourself, or are you becoming a version of what the platform and its audience wants to see? It's enough to make your phone feel heavier than it is, weighted with all these questions. and you thought it was just for cat videos and arguing with strangers. Oh, the innocent days. Remember when your biggest phone-related anxiety was an accidental like on someone's photo from 3 years ago? Simpler times. Part 3. Voice becomes slower, more deliberate, almost hypnotic. All right, let's strip it all away. Imagine a space. Not a physical one necessarily, though it could be. Think of it as a state of being. The ultimate declutter. No phone. No internet. No likes, no shares, no comments. No tasks, no to-do lists, no urgent emails. No news, no feeds, no carefully curated playlists. No water of constant distraction. No signal from the outside world. No validation, no disapproval. No clapping. No audience, no critics, no one to perform for. Just you. Your breath moving in and out. And the sound, the unfiltered, unadulterated, inescapable sound of your own thoughts. This is the austerity of being. This is where the real survival test begins. When the endless barrage of external stimuli ceases, the mind doesn't just go blank. Oh no, it's far too creative for that. Deprived of its usual diet of information and sensation, the brain, in its relentless quest for meaning, for something, starts to generate its own content. Scientists saw this starkly in the 1950s. A Canadian psychologist, Donald Hebb, ran these experiments at McGill University. He paid students brave, or perhaps just broke, graduate students to lie in quiet, darkened rooms for days on end. Their senses were muffled. Cardboard tubes on their arms to limit touch. Opaque goggles flooding their vision with diffuse, featureless light. The only sound, the monotonous drone of a white noise generator. The results? Disorientation, anxiety, an inability to concentrate. And hallucinations. Vivid, sometimes bizarre. People reported seeing marching squirrels with sacks over their shoulders, or hearing choirs sing. One man even felt an electric shock from touching an imaginary doorknob. The mind, it seems, abhors a vacuum. If it doesn't get input, it starts to write its own script, and the genre can get pretty weird. So what script would your mind write in that profound quiet? When the only company you have is the echo of your own consciousness, what voices emerge? Are they kind? Critical? Are they a rehash of old regrets? A catalog of anxieties? Or do you find, to your surprise, a quiet wisdom you never knew you possessed? This is the real wilderness. Forget the desert island fantasies, the heroic tales of battling the elements. Those are about physical endurance. This is about psychic endurance. We Leonese survivors, don't we? Aaron Ralston, trapped by a boulder, cutting off his own arm to escape. Douglas Mawson, the Antarctic explorer, staggering back to base alone, frostbitten, having lost his companions. A story so grim it's shadowed by whispers of cannibalism. Poon Lim, a Chinese steward, surviving 133 days adrift on a raft in the Atlantic after his ship was torpedoed, fishing with a nail, drinking rainwater. Alexander Selkirk, the Scottish sailor marooned for 4 years on a deserted island, the real-life Robinson Crusoe. Julian Coepke, a teenager who fell 2 miles from a disintegrating airplane into the Peruvian rainforest and walked out, alone, 11 days later. Mauro Prosperi, the Italian pentathlete, lost in the Sahara during an endurance race, drinking his own urine and bat blood to survive. These are people who faced death and spat in its eye. They fought for breath, for sustenance, for one more sunrise. But your test in this imagined austerity is different. The threat isn't starvation or exposure. The threat is you. Can you sit with yourself unmediated, unvalidated, unentertained, and not unravel? Can you endure the full, unblinking force of your own being when all the props are kicked away? It's one thing to survive when your body is screaming for life. It's another when your mind is screaming for something, anything, to break the silence, to fill the void. You know, it's said that the longest war in recorded history was the Reconquista in Spain, 774 years. The shortest? The Anglo-Zanzibar War of 1896, over in 38 minutes. Some internal battles feel like that 774-year siege, don't they? a slow, grinding war of attrition against your own anxieties. Others are swift, brutal, and leave you reeling. And then there's boredom, that dreaded state. What is it, really? Is it just the absence of stimulation? Or is it something more profound? Philosophers have wrestled with this. Some say boredom is necessary, a kind of spiritual downtime, a resting period of the soul, as Bertrand Russell put it. Kierkegaard thought idleness, a cousin of boredom, was a virtue, a space where resourcefulness is born. The Stoics believed solitary contemplation, which sounds pretty boring to our modern ears, could awaken our most divine nature. But there's a dark side to boredom too. Studies link it to depression, anxiety, even risky behaviors, as if the mind, desperate for any sensation, will seek out even negative ones. It's a crucible, this boredom, can forge creativity, or it can fuel destructive impulses. The question is, which way would you tip when left alone with it, truly alone? It's like trying to befriend a dust bunny because it's the only other moving thing in the room. A low-budget castaway starring you and your lint. We are social creatures, fundamentally. Prolonged, unwanted isolation chews away at us. It's linked to depression, cognitive decline. That feeling of loneliness, of being cut off, it's a primal alarm bell. Tells us we're unsafe, vulnerable. So, this state of no clapping, no social feedback, it's not just an absence of praise. It's an absence of a fundamental human need for connection, for acknowledgement. Neuroscientists and philosophers continue to debate the extent to which consciousness is dependent on external stimuli versus being an intrinsically generated phenomenon. Is your sense of self something that sparks into being only in relation to others, to the world outside? Or is there a core, an essence, that exists independently, that can sustain itself in the deep, dark quiet? Imagine your inner monologue, the one that usually just mumbles in the background, suddenly gets a microphone, a spotlight, and a captive audience of one. You. What does it say? Is it a stand-up routine? A tragedy? A shopping list? Or just static? That's the survival test. Not against the elements, but against the elemental force of your own unvarnished consciousness. Good luck with that. You'll probably need more than a Swiss Army knife. Part 4. Tone shifts again, becoming more direct, more confrontational, yet still holding that raw intimacy. So, you've been through it. The silence, the stripping away, the echoes in the void where the applause used to be, or at least the comforting hum of distraction. You've sat in the austerity of your own being, with nothing but your breath and the relentless, sometimes terrifying chatter of your own mind. Perhaps you saw squirrels in uniform, or heard choirs in the static. Perhaps you just wrestled with a profound, unsettling boredom that felt like a physical weight. Whatever it was, you're on the other side of that particular desert, that internal Antarctic. And now, the real question lands. It's not about whether you could make fire with 2 sticks or find water in a barren landscape. It's this: you've survived the worst days of your life, haven't you? We all have. Those external storms, the losses, the heartbreaks, the failures, the times the world felt like it was ending. You weathered them. You're still here. But now, after this internal pilgrimage into the quiet, can you survive the weight of who you really are? That's the purge. That's the confrontation. Not with a monster under the bed, but with the complex, contradictory, often unexamined landscape of your own soul. This is where those big, unwieldy existential questions, the ones you scroll past at lightning speed, demand an audience. What is this self, this I, that experiences the world? Are you living a life that feels true, or are you playing a role, reciting lines written by someone else, by society, by expectation, by fear? The ancient Greeks carved "Know thyself" into the stone at the Temple of Apollo at Delphi. A simple phrase, yet a lifetime's work. Originally, it might have meant know your limits. Understand your place in the grand scheme of things. Don't get too big for your sandals. But over time, it deepened, pointing towards a more profound self-excavation. Are you even acquainted with the person inhabiting your skin? Think about authenticity. It's a word we throw around a lot, usually when describing artisanal bread or a particularly earnest folk singer. But in the philosophical sense, it's about the degree to which your actions align with your deepest values and desires, even when the world is screaming at you to conform, to be someone else. It's about owning up to who you really are, warts and all. It's not about being perfect. It's about being congruent. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre and others in that existentialist crowd talked about this. They saw a life lived in self-deception, in bad faith, as a kind of self-loss. Authenticity, then, is the antidote, being true to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's terrifying. Diogenes the Cynic, that old Greek eccentric who lived in a barrel and told Alexander the Great to get out of his sunlight, he was all about this, albeit in a rather abrasive way. He was searching for an honest man, a truly authentic human being, and his lamplit quest in broad daylight suggested they were pretty thin on the ground. He rejected convention, lived with brutal simplicity, all to get at some core truth of existence. Maybe your true self isn't quite ready for a life in a barrel, subsisting on chickpeas and philosophical outrage, and that's okay. Your landlord would probably have issues, but the question remains. How much of your life is a performance for an unseen audience? This is where you might confront the gap between the self you've meticulously constructed for public consumption, your digital avatar, your professional mask, your social persona, and the self that surfaced in the quiet. That false self, as the psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott called it, the one developed to please others, to gain approval, to survive socially. It's a necessary shield, perhaps, but if it's the only self you know, what happens when the need for the shield is gone? The weight you feel might be the dead weight of that persona, or the crushing realization of the authentic life unlived beneath it. It's a bit like that bizarre and tragic condition, Cotard's delusion, the walking corpse syndrome, where people genuinely believe they are dead or that parts of them are missing. It's an extreme, of course, but it's a chilling metaphor for what it might feel like to be so alienated from your own authentic experience that you feel fundamentally unreal, hollowed out. The purge, then, isn't about becoming some idealized, flawless being. It's about honesty, a brutal, unflinching honesty. It's about looking at the accumulated baggage, the compromises, the fears, the unfulfilled dreams, the masks you've worn for so long you've forgotten they're not your skin, and deciding what to keep and what to discard. This kind of self-reckoning has a long, often painful history. Think of St. Augustine, writing his Confessions, laying bare his past sins, his depraved soul, his heart at the bottom of the abyss, all in a quest for transformation. Or Oscar Wilde, in the depths of his prison cell, writing De Profundis, confronting his own role in his ruin. I ruin myself. Nobody, great or small, can be ruined except by his own hand. Or on a grander scale, Emperor Ashoka, the ancient Indian ruler, so horrified by the slaughter of the Kalinga War that he renounced violence and dedicated his reign to peace and moral law, carving his edicts of compassion on stone pillars across his empire. These are stories of profound confrontation leading to transformation. They didn't just survive their pasts. They wrestled with their very essence. Philosophers have long debated whether a true self is an inherent essence to be discovered, or a narrative continuously constructed through choices and experiences. Is there a fixed, singular you waiting to be unearthed, or are you a story you're constantly writing, revising, and reinterpreting? Perhaps the weight is the responsibility of that authorship. It's one thing to survive a shipwreck or a blizzard. The goal is clear, stay alive. But surviving yourself? That means choosing what alive even means. It means accepting the messy, glorious, terrifying totality of your being. It means looking in the mirror, not the curated feed, and asking, okay, now what? Maybe your true self is surprisingly okay with daytime television and eats cereal for dinner. The point isn't what it is, but whether you can bear to look at it, to own it, to carry its weight without collapsing. Can you? The pace slows considerably. The voice softens, vocabulary becomes simpler, sentences lengthen, carrying a gentle, reflective rhythm. And so, the echoes begin to fade. The starkness of that inner landscape, once so overwhelming, perhaps now holds a different quality. Not empty, but spacious. The questions, those relentless interrogators of the soul, they haven't vanished. They rarely do, but maybe, just maybe, their sharp edges have softened a little. The silence you once fled, the quiet hum of your own unadorned consciousness, might now feel less like a threat, and more like an invitation. An invitation to listen, not to the clamor of the world, but to the quieter currents within. You've walked through the digital noise, felt its constant, insistent pull. You've seen the unsettling truth of the self performed, the identity bartered for fleeting validation. You've faced the imagined austerity, the starkness of being without the usual props, the usual applause. And you've stood before the weight of your own being, that intricate tapestry of light and shadow, of strength and vulnerability, of dreams realized and dreams deferred. The world outside, with its infinite choices and its ceaseless demands, hasn't gone anywhere. The screens will light up again. The notifications will chime. The paradox of too much, too fast, too loud will still be there, waiting. But perhaps your relationship to it all can shift, even subtly. Perhaps the quiet you've touched, the stillness you've endured, can become a small, portable sanctuary, a place you can return to, even for a moment, amidst the storm. This journey, this descent into the self, it's not about finding all the answers. It's about learning to live with the questions, to carry their weight with a little more grace, a little more honesty. It's about understanding that survival, in its deepest sense, isn't just about enduring the hardships the world throws at you. It's about enduring yourself, and more than that, about choosing consciously who that self will be, day by day, breath by breath. The burden of infinite choice remains. But within that vast expanse lies the quiet power of authentic choice. The choice to be present. The choice to be real. The choice to simply be. Whispering, almost inaudible, and perhaps that's enough.